During the spring semester of 2014, he was elected by his faculty colleagues to the office of Vice President of Southern University's Faculty Senate. In the spring semester of 2018, he was elected by the faculty colleagues to be President of the Faculty Senate. His research interests include American politics, Black politics, Louisiana politics, educational policy, and voting rights. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Alfred Sanders.
Good afternoon. There should be, just as a housekeeping matter, I think there should be some rosters circulating for those of you who need to verify your attendance at this event. Today, September 17th, this is Constitution Day. This is the 232nd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States, the conclusion of the Convention in Philadelphia. The Constitution of the United States has become The Constitution of the United States, in many ways, has become a revered document in the United States. It is the highest law of the land. It is the starting point from which our political debates begin. However, as we sit here today, we are in a profound constitutional crisis. A crisis that rivals anything that we face, and probably as serious as perhaps the Civil War, which was a much more existential threat to the future of the United States. Now, I would argue that in many ways, a lot of the problems pre-existed this, but I would argue that the crisis can be effectively dated to January 20th, 2017 at 12:01 Eastern Standard Time. Because that was right after Donald Trump took the oath of office. When Donald Trump took the oath of office, he became the first president to, upon the taking of office, was already in violation of the Constitution of the United States. Because the new president at that time had refused at this time to recuse himself or to distance himself from his businesses. In fact, he claimed he didn't have to. He gave a bizarre press conference on January the 11th with his attorney with this big old stack of papers, claiming that there really was no problem with him having his businesses. His sons would run them, and we were just supposed to trust that. And just go on. However, there is this little clause in the Constitution called Article 1, Section 10, refers to the emoluments clause, which I'm just going to summarize it very quickly, which basically prohibits a president from receiving any type of anything of value from any foreign government. And since one thing we know about President Trump is that he, prior to election, and still does, has business interests in at least 20 countries that we know about. And so normally what happens is that we've had a lot of people who have been wealthy, who have gone into public life. Vice President Cheney, for example, prior to assuming the vice presidency, he had made a significant amount of money at Halliburton. And so what he did was he divested himself from some of those, because the idea here is that we want to create at least the appearance that when I make decisions for the country, that I'm making decisions based upon what is in the interest of the United States, rather than what will benefit me financially, what will benefit me personally. President Trump refused to do that. And so this calls into question, whenever he makes certain decisions, am I making the decision based on what's in my interest or the interest of the United States? He follows up a few days later with basically a ban on Muslims entering the country from several countries. He picked about 7 countries on the list. Now, besides the fact that most of the countries on the list had no history of terrorists actually attacking the United States, some of the countries who, even if you thought this was a good policy, that should have been considered, Saudi Arabia, for example, mysteriously went on the list. Could it be because President Trump has business ties to Saudi Arabia? Could it be because maybe he owes them money? And so the president's refusal is this outright refusal to divest himself from his businesses. In fact, it's gotten worse since he came office. The fact that the president essentially views the White House as his personal cash register gives you this one thing, gives us a window into the entire Trump presidency. What we have is a president who basically believes that everything is about him. He believes that the United States government is merely an extension of the Trump organization. He has subverted many of the organs of the agencies of the United States government, essentially to advance his businesses. They have, for example, even advertised Trump properties on the website of the State Department. There is a hotel down the street from the White House that Trump owns, that he again refused to divest from. And so what foreign governments have done is say, okay, since Trump owns this hotel, we're going to rent space in this hotel, which of course provides money for Trump, with the idea of currying favor with the president. Because of his refusal to recuse himself, not only is he been himself personally, but also his family. And so we have, for example, Ivanka, who was supposedly doing a trade mission to China, but then somehow comes back with some trademarks for her businesses. Jared Kushner, who has no legitimate credential whatsoever to be part of anybody's government, is supposedly this jack of all trades, and he goes in the Middle East supposedly for diplomatic purposes, supposedly come up with some kind of peace plan that we haven't seen for the Middle East. But what is he doing, actually? And actually, he does things and doesn't even tell the State Department what he's doing. And it could be that what he's actually doing is talking to the Saudis to get contracts for his own businesses. This is, but this is just a window into this entire presidency. The idea is that it is all about one individual. It's all about one. It is all about one thing. Everything is about the president. This, for example, explains in part the president's curious attitude toward Russian interference in the last election. It is not open to debate whether or not the Russians interfered with the 2016 election. Okay? That is the conclusion of all 17 of the United States' intelligence agencies. It is even the conclusion of most members of the president's own party that the Russian government interfered in the 2016 election, and they interfered specifically to aid Donald Trump in getting elected, and to make it very hard for Hillary Clinton to be elected. This is not a close call. The Mueller report, which, by the way, if you have not read it, I understand it's 400 some pages, but I would suggest that you at least read the executive summary. As a citizen, you should at least read the executive summary. It goes into great detail as to how the interference in the election happened. But rather than acknowledging that, because he believes that it would nullify his victory or diminish the accomplishment in 2016, he refuses to acknowledge what is obvious. In fact, he has gone so far as to throw his own intelligence agencies under the bus publicly on multiple occasions. But probably one of the most egregious examples was overseas. He stood right next to Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, and basically said, I believe Putin over my own intelligence agency. Because it's about him. It's not about ideology, it's about him. One more example of how this president operates. If you want to get a real sense of how Donald Trump thinks, you should consider how he treated his first Attorney General, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, the senator from Alabama. Now, in terms of ideology, there was hardly anybody within the Trump administration who was more ideologically in tune with Donald Trump. Jeff Sessions was the first U.S. senator to endorse Donald Trump when many other Republicans did not. They didn't think he was going to win. That's a whole other story. He was one of the first ones to embrace his campaign. He appeared at rallies with him. He loaned him his closest aide, Stephen Miller, who is actually one of the people who was responsible for some of the most draconian of Trump's policies with regard to immigration. In many ways, they are kindred spirits in this regard. As Attorney General, there are a few people who were actually more effective than Jeff Sessions at pushing the president's agenda in many ways. It was Jeff Sessions who reversed many of the policies of the Obama administration, for example, as it relates to police reform. It was Jeff Sessions who was trying to restart the drug war. It was Jeff Sessions whose Justice Department was ignoring the rise in hate crimes and refusing to prosecute those things. And it was Jeff Sessions who announced the president's child separation policy at the border. We're going to separate people who are seeking asylum. We're going to refuse to comply with international law regarding asylum by denying people the right to even apply for asylum. It was Jeff Sessions who announced those things. So Jeff Sessions was very effective at carrying out some of the worst aspects of Trump's agenda. But instead of rewarding Jeff Sessions for his loyalty, for his effectiveness in carrying out his agenda, Jeff Sessions committed one unpardonable sin. And that is, when it came to the Russia investigation, Jeff Sessions recused himself when it was apparent that he had some conflicts of interest and there were some things that he had neglected to tell the Congress, and that had come out, and so he recused himself. Listening to the advice of lawyers within the Justice Department, he said, "Now I'm not going to do this. It's not even a close call." Not only was the president angry about this, not only the president thought he should not have done this, he actually tried on several occasions to get Jeff Sessions to unrecuse himself from this. And he never forgave Jeff Sessions. Because see, in Donald Trump's mind, the job of the Attorney General is not to be the chief law enforcement official of the United States, to uphold the laws of the United States. The job of the Attorney General is to be the president's personal defense attorney. And when Jeff Sessions would not do that, despite repeated efforts by the president to get him to change his mind, then by ridiculing him in the press, cutting him down in behind closed doors, he finally created a situation where Jeff Sessions had no choice but to resign. But the president eventually did find someone who would do his bidding, and that's the current Attorney General, Bill Barr. This is the Attorney General who basically lied to the country about what was in the Mueller report. And he has been doing a lot of the president's bidding, even stooping to the low of, it may seem trivial, but removing or changing the location where the Department of Justice holds their regular Christmas party to Trump's hotel, so that the Trump hotel can make money off of that, to put more money in the president's pocket. See, again, this presidency is not about public service. It's about private profit. Now, when you think about this, supposedly, if you were scripting this out, if you were saying that the United States would elect a president who would do some of the things that I have described. This is just a small sampling of some of the things that this president has done. We would be here all day trying to catalog just the number of scandals that daily come out of this administration. It is actually an issue of fatigue that so many scandals come out that we can't keep up with them. I ain't here. Okay. But if you were writing a Hollywood script and said that we would elect a president who would do some of the things that I described, you'd probably get fired. This could not happen. This is fiction. This could not happen in the United States. In the United States, we believe in the rule of law in the United States. In the United States, we believe that no man is above the law. In the United States, we have this principle called the separation of powers. And so, if he got too far out of line, the Congress would stop him. Or the people wouldn't stand for it. This is the kind of thing that happens in other countries. This is the kind of thing that happens in small third world tin can dictatorships. But not in the United States. You'd be wrong. Because that is exactly what's happening right now in the United States. And it's happening for lots of reasons why this is happening. And believe me, some of the things I'm mentioning here did not start with Donald Trump. In many ways, they've gotten worse, obviously, since he's become president. But we have to clearly, for example, put a lot of the blame for how we got to where we are clearly at the feet of the Republican Party. This is not a partisan statement. This is a true statement. Thank you. Because keep in mind, the Republican Party, in many cases, when the president was elected, the Republicans did control both houses of Congress. And though they are members of Congress, they have their own constitutional responsibility to supposedly to act as a check on the power of the executive. They are not simply, at least in theory, simply supposed to be a rubber stamp for the person who is in office, even if that person is of their own party. However, at every turn, not only has the Republican Party, for the most part, refused to exercise their legitimate Article I function of being a check on the power of the president, but they have joined in, justified, even celebrated some of these abuses. They have made all kinds of excuses for some of the worst actions of this president. Now, some of them will, behind the scenes, say all kind of things about them, but they don't count. You get no credit for that. Every time it matters, the Republican Party, at least at the congressional level, they go along with this president. The only Republicans who seemingly have stood up to this president have been John McCain, and he was dying. I mean, literally. Other Republicans who have stood up to me at various times have either retired or in some cases they have been defeated, like, say, Mark Sanford, the representative from South Carolina, who was, though very conservative, didn't agree with him on every single thing. And so he was primaried by someone who was even more conservative. And he was defeated for office. And so, again, but almost at every significant turn, they have made excuses for him. Now, of course, this is not based on any kind of principle. Because we can imagine how this party would have behaved had Hillary Clinton won the election. This is the same party, for example, which insisted for 4 years that we investigate Benghazi over and over and over again. And when that didn't work, they they investigated her emails over and over and over again. And let's remember, in 2007, under the Bush administration, 2 million emails mysteriously disappeared when a scandal involving the Bush administration and how they fired some U.S. attorneys came about. 2 million emails disappeared. That story was covered for 48 hours and it disappeared. But we covered the Hillary Clinton so-called email scandal day after day after day after day after day after day for nothing. And ultimately what it did reveal nothing. Nothing. This is the same party which has, for more than a generation, preached that it was the party of family values. This is the party which pushed and to impeach Bill Clinton, essentially over a sex scandal. Said he was unfit to be in office. Claimed he was a liar. He had low character, and that he was an embarrassment to our children. And some of the same people who excoriated Bill Clinton, who despised his wife Hillary. I don't mind calling a few names. Franklin Graham, Billy's son, who was quoted in 1999 about the low character of Bill Clinton and why he should be removed from office. Then when he was asked to explain, well, how is it that you can support Donald Trump? The context of the interview was after it was revealed that the president in the days leading up to the election concocted a scheme of hush money payments to keep the news about his extramarital affairs from getting out, and then covered up and lied about it. His personal attorney, Michael Cohen, is in jail today because of his involvement in that. And then the court documents, essentially list the president as an unindicted co-conspirator. But how can you justify this? And he made an excuse. He makes an excuse. Well, basically, we didn't say he was perfect, but we like his policies. Isn't that the same thing you said about liberals in 1998, 1999 about Bill Clinton? But they have no consistency. No consistency. This is a party that claimed to be fiscally conservative, but every time they have had power, both houses of the country, they have exploded the deficit. They've exploded debt. So the truth of the matter is, they are only interested in deficits when Democrats are in charge. When Republicans are in charge, they explode the deficit. They have no problem with that. This party has no principle. There is not a single principle at the heart of the Republican Party other than winning. They will do whatever it takes to win. And so that means being consistent, be hypocritical. It means lying, to be duplicitous. They will do that. They do that in order to win. So we have one party, one of our major political parties today, that has literally evolved into a fascist movement The Republican Party today is not a healthy political party as we come to understand it. This is not just a healthy two-party system. They have become literally a fascist movement. It has become the party of Trump. And any Republican who doesn't toe the line about Trump is not welcome in the party anymore. That's where they have, where we've come. And so, yeah, yes, they deserve a lot of the blame for how we, in some ways, got to where we are. Again, some of these trends was happening before Trump got in office, but it's gotten worse since. But I would argue the Democrats are partly responsible too. Because in some ways, the Democratic Party, since Trump got his nose bashed in the 2018 election, Democrats regained control of the House of Representatives. In some ways. And in some ways, they have not been able to hold this president accountable. We have a blueprint from the Mueller report where we have clear evidence of obstruction of justice, witness tampering, president abuse of power, by the President of the United States. We have the Mueller report shows clearly that not only did the Russians interfere